Hi, welcome. I'm Elizabeth from Art Studio Life, and today I'm going to be talking about a topic that's just very near and dear to me, and that's the fundamentals and the painting process. And my students will know how much I talk about this because it's really the absolute most important part of painting. And the beautiful thing about the fundamentals is that you can apply them to any possible medium. Just whatever you want to use for your art, you can apply the fundamentals to it. And I'm going to be actually just showing that, demonstrating that by using soft pastels and creating a pastel drawing just as I bring you through the painting process and how I apply the fundamentals to the painting process or drawing process or kind of whatever material you are going to be using. And I've really never actually received any kind of training whatsoever in soft pastels. But I've taken just my knowledge and everything I've learned in regards to painting and color and light and how value works and applied it to soft pastels. And I do the same thing with any medium that I use, with watercolor, with just whatever I'm doing. I use the fundamentals and I apply it to that. And the reason why that works is because, as I kind of already mentioned, the fundamentals are universal and they are based in real, just in a way, how the natural world works and the way we see things. So they're based in light and dark values. They're based in how color actually works. So you learn, when you learn the fundamentals, you learn these things. And so then you can really apply them. And that's why you can really paint whatever you want to paint when you understand the fundamentals and when you learn them and learn the painting process and how to apply them to your own painting process. So I'm going to be bringing you through that and just the mindset and the way one thinks and how one does that, how you kind of apply that to just a medium that you're completely not familiar with. And I honestly, still to this day, have not done, I actually really love soft pastels and I want to work with them more. And I haven't worked with them very much at all. So you're going to be getting kind of a real view of, just a medium that isn't very familiar to me. But yet I am applying the fundamentals and just my painting process to it and how I do that. So this is a set that I have. These are kind of the only soft pastels that I have. The Sennelier, I really like this brand. They're a portrait set. I got this as a birthday gift. I'm not going to be doing a portrait, but I will be, the colors that I'm going to be using are all in here, will be very relevant for what I'm going to be doing. All right, so join me as we go through this process. All right, so here's the start of my drawing. So I'm actually doing this after this rose. I'm looking at it in real life, but I put a little picture here for you to get an idea of what I'm working from. And a little confession, I actually totally forgot to turn the camera on when I flipped it over to do this demonstration, but I'm glad I caught myself right in the beginning. So here in the beginning, you can see how I have kind of this clear sort of light, dark, and medium value, and I start out with the main three values. I find an area in my subject where I can clearly see a light, medium, and dark value, and doing this helps me to establish just a really strong kind of value structure right from the beginning and helps for me to kind of build on top of that. Because let's say if my values aren't quite right, then I can adjust that right in the beginning before moving on. It's a lot easier to change things kind of in the beginning stage than changing everything later on after you've kind of spent a lot of time on your piece. Now I do want to make a note here that the image that I've included here on the screen of my subject that I'm looking at as I'm drawing this, it looks a little different than what it actually looks like in real life. So the values aren't quite as pronounced. They're a little washed out in the image. But I think it is helpful still to be able to see, kind of just get an idea of what I'm seeing and looking at. Now, no matter what medium you're working in, whether it's watercolor, soft pastel, acrylics, oils, whatever it may be, value is always going to be the most important element. It always is. And that's what is the beauty of just the fundamentals and how you can apply them to just any kind of medium and whatever you're working in. So, of course, the physical aspect of the materials might look a little bit different in how you use them. For example, in oil paints or acrylics, you're going to mix the values up, mix up colors to achieve and get a certain value, versus here in soft pastels, we're doing a lot of layering, as you can see. I'm kind of adding up colors, layering them to get darker colors. I'm using darker colors, I'm kind of layering them on top of one another to get something specific. So for example, well, here at the moment, I'm mixing up the dark background and I'm using kind of a dark color, then kind of mixing on top of that another dark color, but it's a fairly simple mixture. Then other parts, it's maybe a little bit more complex to get a certain shade. And so kind of just layering one over the other. And I do use my finger a lot to kind of smudge it a little bit so those colors and values mix together just more readily and easily. And if you're familiar with using soft pastels, you'll know that some colors, some sticks are a little softer than others. And also some brands are softer than other brands. And the softer colors are, of course, easier to use, easier to blend. And so what I do is I use some of my softer sticks kind of first when I'm layering, because then that helps to kind of mix the colors together more easily. So here, I'm trying to capture that blush kind of color of this rose flower. So I put on that pink, but of course it's way too pink, too saturated, but it was very soft, and it also helps me to get that color to kind of shine through from beneath. And it's actually really fun to work with this layering, and there's so many crossovers with oil painting, and that's why this is such a just amazing and also medium for painters to use, because there's such a painterly element to it, and I think painters would really enjoy using soft pastels. And working with edges, that's another fundamental element. Kind of here I'm capturing a lot of soft edges, creating those very, very soft areas that you can see just in, whenever you look at flowers, there's a lot of soft and hard edges that are happening, and those are just so important and crucial to pay attention to, no matter what subject you're working with, but they're especially because it's so subtle. There's a lot of subtlety you're working with here. And it's kind of working with creating those sharp areas is very important, and that of course crosses over right away with value, because of course when you put a light value next to a dark area, it creates a hard edge, and when you have two lighter values next to one another, it creates a softer edge. And this is something that's true no matter what medium you're working in. And again, I want to reiterate here, I really have absolutely zero, barely any experience with soft pastels. I had, as I mentioned in the introduction to this video, I've received no training in it. And it's when you learn just how these elements work together, you can apply it to any kind of medium that you're working in. You know, one artist that comes to my mind as just I'm going through this and talking about what's happening here and this subject about just how the fundamentals apply to any and all mediums. And I think of Degas, he was such an experimental artist. He worked in so many different mediums, and he even mixed mediums. It was not traditional what he did and what he was doing. The reason why he was able to work in so many mediums and really cross over a lot of those things is because he deeply understood how light works, how edges work, how color works, just how all of these things work together to create a picture. And he was able to apply that to whatever element, whatever medium he worked in. He did not need any extra training in how something works. He probably, practiced and worked with it to understand a material, how it functions and what its properties are. But then once kind of he had just a regular understanding of that, then, he could just run with it and create just beautiful pictures, beautiful drawings and paintings of what he did. And to get to such a place, one of course needs to have a deep knowledge, understanding, fluency in the language of painting and the fundamentals and how these things work, and be able to use them in a painting. But to take it further and to really be able to practice that, you really have to have a painting process and know how to use it in your painting and how to apply it and how to work with it. Because what that means is how to problem solve, how to navigate certain parts of a painting. Because it inevitably one is going to hit a brick wall, not really know how to figure something out, how to navigate through something, and it's about the painting process is about working through that and how you apply the fundamentals to that process and how you work with that. And the big reason why that's important is because the painting process is, unfortunately or fortunately, however one sees it, it's not a linear path. And meaning that it isn't just a straightforward answer where it's just black and white and very clear of how to do something, how to paint something. Again, it depends on how one sees it. One may wish painting was like just baking cookies, where it was just very clear. There's a recipe and certain amounts of different things that you kind of put in your bowl, mix together, and then put in the oven. But that's not painting, and it's never going to be painting. Painting is messy. It takes a lot of figuring out, a lot of just wrestling with something. But that's what makes painting amazing. And some of the best things in life are the things that are difficult and hard, and you have to work through them and figure things out, because the rewards that you get on the other end are far beyond worth it. And I'm saying this from someone who has had to work a lot, just struggled kind of through figuring things out and spending a lot of time with that. In the drawing here now, you can see I'm drawing some of that green part of the flower, and I'm using here some dark to layer on top of it to create that soft edge that you can see, because it does kind of blend into the background a little bit there, because you have two darker values next to one another. Soft pastels are of course very different from working with charcoal, because charcoal is, of course, you're just working with a dark color and you're working with the white of the page to create different values. And with soft pastel, you have just all these different colors to be able to work with. But in a way, it's very similar, because it's very soft and it blends easily, and you can kind of move it quickly across the page. There's in a way a versatility to it, and kind of it's very immediate, so you can create changes really quickly. You can create light values, dark values, create colors very quickly with this. And in a way, that's I really do. If you don't have soft pastels, I really recommend to get some, work with them, experiment with them, just kind of get used to them and try them out, because I think if you are a painter, you will especially like them. If you work with different mediums, you will also like them. There's something very immediate with it. You can kind of just figure out ideas too. If you're just sketching, trying to figure out compositions, soft pastels are very just easy to bring that out. Now I've skipped ahead here because I was just doing a lot of just subtle, small, minor changes. And again, with any medium, it's kind of the same. Not always, not all the time, but very often, kind of as you reach the end of a painting, you kind of narrow your focus a little bit and you work on specifics more, versus in the beginning part of a painting, you're kind of doing these broad strokes and working in large areas, large spots of colors, large spots of values, in such a manner, versus kind of as you near the end, you're kind of zeroing in a little bit, working on finer details. And that's what I've been doing here, is kind of really getting down to kind of more nitty-gritty elements, and kind of figuring out how to wrap up the drawing. Or some people actually call it soft pastel paintings, whatever word you prefer. I personally prefer to call it drawing. And now here, kind of this last bit I'm working on is the inner part of the flower. I noticed it needed to be just a little bit darker, bring that out a little bit more. And again, this is something that unfortunately doesn't really show through in the picture of that I have here. I'm showing you of the rose, but it is there in real life. It's a little bit, you can see kind of that darkness that exists more there, and it's important for kind of a little bit more of that drama that exists in the value, or I can call it value story that we have. Now, the next time you work with a medium that's a little bit different, that's kind of out of your comfort zone, something that maybe you've never used before, you've just used a few times, keep the fundamentals in mind and practice applying them to whatever medium you're working in, and just bring them into your process. So think of color, value, color temperature, composition, edges, etc. All of those things. Work on really kind of thinking through those things, and first and foremost, and really applying them to that new medium that you're working in. Doing that will really make a world of difference. Thank you so much for joining me here. Please like and subscribe this video. It really makes a huge difference and helps others to discover just the content that I have here. You can go to my website, artstudiolife.com, for more tutorials and information and videos. Until then, see you in the next video.